overview of what we're going to talk about tonight. This is meant to be a discussion, but we also want to share some information that we have. So we're going to start with that part of the presentation. But we will go over what the current proposal is. We'll talk about what the Historical Commission, how they responded to that proposal. And we'll talk about how we think a developer can and should be working with the community. And then we'll just talk a little bit about how this might impact us, even if we're not directly, adjacent to Annie Lathrup school. And then after that presentation, we will have an open discussion and just share notes and figure out what to do from there. So just real quickly, why are we having a town hall? This is probably going to be the largest development proposal in Lathrup and in the foreseeable future. It's a huge piece of land. It's a very important building. It's a very important part of our history. So it's a big deal. It will impact in one way or another all of us. And there hasn't been a lot of information widely circulated. You can find it. The people on the panel have found it. And they want to share it with everybody here. The other thing is that the process is moving quite quickly in terms of putting a proposal out and trying to get it approved and moving forward. And because of that, and with the lack of resident input to date, we did request an official town hall to address this issue and have City Council sort of sponsor that. They declined to do that, and so we felt that it was important that we move forward quickly because decisions are being made. So with that, we rented the room and we set it up. We brought some of our own mics and we put this together. And I hope it's valuable to everybody that came out tonight. And I also hope that you're able to share what you learned or find out tonight with people that you know. So with that, I'll introduce our panel.
Do you want to introduce yourself?
I'm John Suzanis. I'm a longtime resident. But my role here is mostly just to moderate, and I'll be trying to handle questions at the end of this as well. Our panel is Autumn Suzanis, my wife, Bruce Kopis, and Karen Miller. They have a lot of experience. We have two former city council members and planning commission members. Autumn has been an organizer of several online groups for the community, and has been really, all three of them, as well as a larger group that's part of putting this on tonight, have been really active in trying to just keep tabs on what's going on and then share that information. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Autumn, and she's going to talk about the proposal itself and what they're doing and what she knows about it, and we have lots of pictures of that. So, Autumn?
Hi, everybody. So in our MUNA code, where we put our agenda packets, you can find the information we're going to be looking at. These are going to be renderings from Cernel Group, who's the developer that owns quite a lot of properties around Lathrup and has owned the Annie Lathrup School since the 90s. Cernel is the same developer who tore down our town hall with the tower. I don't know if you guys remember that, but it used to flank either side. There was Annie Lathrup and there was this way. There was the town hall and there was Annie Lathrup. And those were our two landmarks. You knew when you saw those chimneys and that tower in the distance, we were almost home. And so here, what we're talking about is Cernel has decided to stop using the building as a vacant tax-exempt property, and they're looking to redevelop it using federal funds and MISHDA money, Michigan, housing, I forget the whole, SHDA money, federal money, as well as some tax exemption using pilot money. All these things, you can find more information online. You can find them on the Lathrup Village Voice. We have documents posted there, but people can speak to that better next to me. Okay, so what are they proposing to build? It started out as a 60-foot tall. What should I do? Oh, louder. Thank you. So they're proposing to build. Okay, sorry. They were going to build a 60-foot towering monstrosity, 700 feet long. They reduced it by a story, so it was 5 stories, now it's 4 stories. That's twice as tall as any building we currently have. 700 feet long. Rick Witz told me that is several football fields long. You guys can tell me how many football fields is that? No. Wasn't that terrible? I'm sorry.
302 and a third.
So it's 2 1/3 football fields long. Okay. These are 2 apartment buildings that are being proposed to be placed right next to the sidewalk, 5 feet from the sidewalk. So they're going to encroach on Southfield Road in a way that no other building does currently. And the plot is 4.8 acres, and it's going to be completely covered from Sunset to Golden Gate, all the way back to the first part of our track, where my kids learned how to ride bikes. That's going to be gone. It's going to be parking lot. And I think we can move on to the next slide. Okay, so they've updated the proposal that I'm aware of, that I'm able to find in our records 3 times. So when they tell you they've come back and back and back to us, I believe it's 3 times. So you can continue. Okay, so here's the most recent rendering. The thing is, this is from an above perspective. I think as a pedestrian or a car, it will be so overpowering. They chose this high vantage point to look down vantage point, so it wouldn't look quite so tall. Again, now this is a parking lot for 193 cars. There's going to be about 300 plus residents, and that's giving them about a car and a half per unit. And here's the building materials. They were updated to try to be more compliant with our ordinance for building materials. They are putting brick on the first floor finally, but they're putting residential. They need residential on the first floor, they say. And that is against our ordinances as they stand. Our ordinances are, what? Even louder? Oh, sorry. Right close to my mouth? Oh God, guys, okay. Okay, so I can do that. So these building materials, they're listed. There's James Hardy cement board. The brand name is on there. There's metal paneling, aluminum paneling, and brick on the bottom. Okay, very flat, very modern. Oh, there we go. Sorry, extended aluminum frame wrap, metal panel, vertical board and batten siding by James Hardy. That's something that Home Depot sells. I'm sorry, when I look at this, I see Home Depot discount aisle. Okay, continue. I shouldn't have much opinion. Okay, so each floor is going to have 58 bedrooms, and that's a lot of people. There could be 2 people in a lot of those bedrooms. It's just a lot of demand on our infrastructure. And then here's a little bit blurry, but you can kind of see the parking lot and the building. And you can see Annie Lathrup Hall in the center. So you'll see another slide soon, but they're planning to keep the basketball court and the vaulted ceiling. But what they're doing is they're going to rebuild it, basically. They're going to keep, it's called a facade-ectomy. Facade-ectomy. They're going to take off everything but the very front facade. They're going to rebuild the brick on the sides and the back. And from what I've heard from, I go to meetings and I'm listening and I'm paying attention, they're going to be replacing those beautiful historic chimneys with modern indications of chimneys, which would be a big loss. A lot of our houses have that beautiful, I don't know if it's Tudor style chimneys, but I think that'd be a great loss. I know that Annette Kingsbury, may she rest in peace, she wrote about those chimneys in her book that she just published before she died. Those chimneys are a significant landmark, and they are of significant historical importance. Okay, next slide. So the school's there. Can you find it? So there it is. Can't see it still. Now that's with mature trees. It's not going to look like that for a long time, but anyway.
These are views from the road.
Correct. Yeah.
So you'll be able to see the school when you're next to it, but then as the cars go by, there really is quite limited view.
It's not a landmark anymore, yeah, with this building, the way it's situated. You can, rubberneck and see the building as you fly by at 45 miles an hour, which is another problem. Okay, so here you have, it's sort of a,
My fault.
it's okay. Now, what's interesting, as an artist, I noticed that the building on the right is slightly taller than the building on the left. You can tell these are approximations, right? These aren't mathematically exact, but nonetheless, it's kind of a nice idea, having some community space in front. They've shown it in other renderings with a public sculpture in that little kind of garden gathering area. But really, how many of us are going to feel comfortable to sit right next to Southfield Road without some kind of physical barrier between us? Okay, so, I'm sorry, so the school is not going to, according to their drawings, I think we have a slide of it, the school is not going to have residential inside that school, footprint. What they're planning is to keep the basketball court and turn it into a pickleball court. They're planning to eliminate the stage and put bathrooms there where the stage is, and put above the stage an observation deck with a glass wall to watch, observation to watch pickleball. So we'll lose the stage, we'll lose the ability to have we lose the entire building to the residents that are intended to live there. Cerno said the doors will be locked, and there will be a room with a big screen TV on the wall and some rows of chairs. There does seem to be a little room like a lobby. There seem to be places, tables for people to sit and talk, but it's all for the residents. I think of it like a Hilton with a nice lobby. They have a self-serve coffee bar along one wall. The thing is in the renderings, in one of them, which I didn't include because I think it's so deceptive, there's a word cafe, and there's no cafe. There's a counter with, self-serve Keurigs or press pots. It's not a cafe. There's no place on the blueprint to have a kitchen of any sort. This is just for the residents, and that's that. And I guess if you make a friend who lives over there, you can maybe play pickleball.
Well, and I think the main room would be open for rentals.
Oh, they did say you can rent,
Sorry,
sure.
Excuse me, you said it's going to be open for residents, just residents of the apartment?
Only residents of those apartments. Yep. And we will have discussion afterwards, but feel free to shout out, that's fine. With me, anyway. Okay, next slide.
So that's the proposal, and then this proposal was brought to the Historic District Commission, and so Bruce is going to talk a little bit about the Historic District and also what their response to this proposal was.
Thank you, John. Thanks for coming out. This is a residence town hall. We did it because the city didn't. The Historic District Committee, they were founded in the late 90s after we received the federal historical site for this building, the Annie Lathrup School, and the community church. The idea was to protect Annie Lathrup School, or the other ones, from being torn down. And sure enough, the Cerno group, and I think they were just called, I don't know what they were called back then, they made a proposal to council to tear down Annie Lathrup School and put in a strip mall. So this was back in the 90s, so but the building's protected now, and the Historic District Committee has control over the building. I better put my glasses on.
I'll just say, I typed in commission about 15 times, so it is the Historic District Committee. And I'll fix that on the deck. Go ahead.
Copy on?
What? Yeah, go ahead.
I do not believe that the city council or our city have been transparent in this process. We have had site plans discussion going back to the beginning of the year, but the actual site plan was not submitted until October. And they're suggesting a $30 to $40 million redevelopment project for the Andy Lathrup property. With this type of development coming forth, you would think that they would, the city, would have announced it, would have put it in a newsletter, would have put it on their Facebook. It's a pretty big deal. But no. Fellow residents, we need to know what they have up their sleeves. Our city council or the city didn't think we needed to know, or that they needed our input. The idea tonight is to bring everyone up to speed as best we can. We don't have all the answers. This is a mammoth building and it will directly impact our residents. So on December 9th, the Historic District Committee was approached by the Surnow Group with their site plan. After listening and viewing the site plan, they said no. At that point, the Surnow Group had a choice. They could go back to the Planning Commission and work with them to remedy some of the points that the Historic District noted in their denial. But Surnow chose to appeal, which he has the right to do, the decision directly to City Council. When City Council meets, I understood it was to be this coming Monday. It may not be this Monday. They're meeting this Monday, City Council, but they may not vote on it this Monday. And initially, it was set up to be voted, according to the information we got, but they may have delayed. But anyway, it's very possible that at Monday's meeting, the council will either uphold the denial or overturn the denial. If City Council overturns the denial, we will have an apartment complex. That is basically the approval of the site plan pending the Planning Commission working out all the kinks. This apartment complex will be the largest redevelopment in Lathrup Village history. And yet here we are tonight with very little information, and I thank you all for coming. The Planning Commission typically receives the site plan, works on it with the developer to bring it in compliance. They can ask for traffic surveys, engineering reports, infrastructural reports, landscaping design, etc. I think in this case, the infrastructure report would be the most important, and to the best of my knowledge, that has not been performed. Now, if the developer has this information, they have not yet shared it. The Historic District Committee only got involved because it is in their purview to oversee. In fact, it's a small note, and I know we have a planning commissioner here tonight. To have the Historic District Committee be approached by a large development, such as whatever we just saw, they're not a group that's in tune or whatever. They looked at the plans and they said, look, it did not suit them. It would have been nice if the Planning Commission had sat down with the Historic District Commission, had a dialogue, talked about the process, talked about what they're at, but that didn't happen. So the Planning Commission did review the project in December after 2 months of having the site plan, and immediately asked the city planner to revise the ordinance to allow for first floor residency. That plan was presented yesterday at a public hearing at the Planning Committee meeting. I attended the meeting along with numerous residents who expressed concerns over the ordinance change to allow the first floor residency. I know the planning commissioner says, where do we stop? And it was an ordinance that was basically cherry-picked to meet, so that the Surnow Group could meet compliance. After the public hearing, the planning commission chose to table this ordinance revision. We did find out during that meeting that the planning commission has already indicated to the Surnow Group that they would consider first floor occupancy in lieu of retail, which is what the master plan calls for. With respect to the DDA, our Downtown Development Authority, they have literally, according to their minutes, they have not discussed this plan over the last 6 months. You would have thought it might have been mentioned, but it was not. Our planners, Giffel-Webster's, stated that this project was compatible to the master plan. I know we don't have anything for the master plan up there, but it is not. We, as a community, got together on several occasions to go over the master plan, develop the master plan, implement the master plan. Now, with one swoop of the pen, the master plan with the first floor retail is gone. What we end up with the Annie Lathrup School will be merely a divider in an apartment building with this overwhelming size. You basically, and you can see, you can't even see the school, and the exterior of this complex, apartment complex, is just not cohesive with the Annie Lathrup School. The city planners are just the vision of our city engineers, and wouldn't Giffel-Webster's be delighted to watch over this multi-million-dollar project? Good for the income. Who is funding the project? We know they are getting federal funds for this development. It is tied to a federal housing plan called the pilot program. We also know that the state of Michigan may chip in some money. Both sources of funding do have strings attached. We know that the goal of these federal and state funds are to utilize, these state funds are to be utilized to develop housing for workplace or for workforce individuals. We are getting renters and not taxpayers. I, for one, want answers to what extent the funding sources can call the shots or dictate who can be housed in this apartment complex. With respect to revenue, which is always important to the city, there's, no matter which, we only receive about $20,000 now on property taxes from the school. The property value after this development would greatly increase, and thus the property taxes that they pay to the city would increase as well. But that won't happen. Because if we go with the federal funding program, the pilot program, we are allotted a percentage of rental income.
If we have an average rental price of $1,500 per unit, so that is not a $70,000 increase in property taxes, is not going to even cover an additional police officer that may need to, patrol the city, or anything else to be able to support a project of that size.
The demands on our city services would definitely be increased. Police, as Ms. Miller just pointed out, it'd be reasonable to assume that additional police officers would be needed. And although I'm not 100% sure on this, you're going at least $80,000 per officer. City staff, we are adding more duties to our staff. We are not collecting property tax, but the revenue from the building owner needs to have oversight. I don't know how that would be set up. How do we be accounting for the revenues that are received by the building? How do we know if we're getting accurate information? The fire department with this large complex will, in our next negotiations with the Southfield Fire Department, will they ask for even a greater increase than they normally ask for because of this complex. The library, will they ask for more money because of all the additional residents? These are things that we have to consider. An increase to the front desk traffic. Our infrastructure, we currently have water pressure problems now. I know Ms. Miller has checked on the Southfield Fire Department to see what their thoughts are, well, they don't even know the plant exists. Sewage. Okay, it's just an increase, a large increase on that particular property, as well. Do we know the impact and how do we handle this? No infrastructure study has been done, or if the developer has a report, he has not shared. Traffic on our roads will increase dramatically. More noise, more litter. We have a lot of unanswered questions. How do we handle the increased traffic of 100 new residents or 100 new vehicles navigating our roads morning, noon, and night? The rear of the building will be paved to accommodate 275 vehicles, but the planning commission says the standard is 2 cars per unit, and the current parking plan only provides for 1.6 vehicles per unit. Are we gonna have cars parked in the street, in front of your house? What happens to property values? This would definitely have an effect on property values. This expansive project, in my opinion, will be a detriment to our community. We are a bedroom community, we're not an urban city. That's what I have to say.
Thanks.
Yeah.
There was a really good synopsis. My question is, I don't understand how the authority goes. Like, we have the planning commission.
Yep.
We have the historic committee. We have the, what is it?
DDA?
Yeah, I mean, and then in the 90s, these parcels were designated as historic. So how can we be making an historic building become a shop and totally changing what it was when it was designated as historic? And who takes precedence? The planning commission or the historic committee?
The historic committee turned it down, so they would definitely have to go back before them at some point in time, unless the city overrides the denial.
So does the city council have to listen to the planning commission? You know, we were very, very.
Oh, yeah, for sure. They
very close
listened to
last
them
night.
very closely.
Very close last night, but they almost passed. I listened, thank you for Autumn for taking it, because I work tonight, and I have to come, take the clock to come to these meetings. I have to thank Autumn for taking it, but it was a very difficult meeting to watch. And I have to say something, sometimes I feel very frustrated when I watch these meetings, because so many of the people of Lathrup Village who have been here so long have so many important things to say and knowledge, and I feel like the commission and also the planning commission and also our city council, really, they don't really care. I just want to say that.
Well, I think that's part of the reason we're here tonight, is just to give people a little more time to talk than possibly the 3 minutes they might be allotted. Yes, go ahead.
Just real quick, Bruce, you mentioned that the compensation for the project would be 4% of the revenue.
That's what Cernal's offering.
So if they're only at a 50% occupancy rate, does that decline then from
Absolutely.
90,000 or down
Yeah.
another 50%?
Sure.
Okay, I think that's important to know.
It is,
There's
thank
no
you.
guarantee then on what that income stream would be. Thank you.
Correct. Good point.
We jumped around a little on the outline, but I wanted to give Karen a little bit of a chance to talk about the process as it's supposed to be and how it's been, and maybe looking back real quick. I apologize for skipping through the slides, but I'll let you start here and take it from there, and I'll try to keep up.
Okay. When I served on the Lathrup City Council, I tried to focus on 3 things. Those things were that the residents are at the top of the city's organizational chart. Because residents should be the focus, residents should be actively and meaningfully involved in major decision-making, and our city government needs to be transparent. As has been said multiple times tonight, determining the future of the Annie Lathrup School is probably the most significant decision the city will make, yet there has been no resident involvement in making the decision. City ordinances put in place to protect us are being ignored, and our city planners and leaders are putting the Surnow Company's needs and wants ahead of ours. We aren't against developing this property. We're not against it at all. We just believe that development should be thoughtful, should include resident input, and should meet the requirements of our ordinances. Our Code of Ordinances contains Chapter 40, which is the Historical Preservation Act, created in 1999. And the main purpose of the ordinance is to safeguard the heritage of the city by preserving the cultural, social, economic, political, and architectural elements having historic significance. That certainly fits the Annie Lathrup School. This ordinance also created the Historic District Commission, which is supposed to be comprised of 7 members to administer and implement the provisions of the ordinance and to protect the 3 historic districts in our city: this building, the Annie Lathrup School, and the community church next door. It's important to have commissions in a city because it's important to have systems of checks and balances. Checks and balances prevent any one body from having too much power. I'm not sure how it came about that the Planning Commission power is trumping the power of the Historic District Commission. I feel like the city is trying to sidestep the checks and balances. Per the Historic Preservation Ordinance, the Historic District Commission has the power and responsibility to review and approve applications, including proposals and plans for construction, alteration, repair, or demolition in those 3 historic district buildings. Though the Historic District Commission is supposed to play a significant role in any development concerning these 3 buildings, prior to December 12, 2024, the Historic District Commission hadn't met since May 18th of 2022. And even though 3 of the 5 commissioners at the December meeting were brand new, the group was asked to approve the Surnow Company's partial demolition and rehabilitation proposal for the Annie Lathrup School and their plan for multi-family housing. Following the rules of the ordinance, the Historic District Commission voted at their first meeting since 2022 to approve the Surnow Company's partial demolition and rehabilitation proposal, but they rejected the plans as submitted. The next day, a certificate of rejection for the Surnow Company was created by the Lathrup Village Historic District Commission Chairman, who was elected as chair only the night before. Though there are several other options available to the Historic District Commission, many of them were skipped, and the Surnow Company appealed the Historic District Commission's decision on December 19th. The Planning Commission met 4 days later on December 17th, and their packet contained an ordinance change that was dated November 11th that Giffords Webster, who is paid by Lathrup Village, wrote specifically for the benefit of the Surnow Company that takes away the power of the Historic District Commission and gives it to the Planning Commission. At this December meeting, the Planning Commission voted to hold a public hearing on the ordinance in January. The public hearing was publicized in the Oakland Press on December 20th, or the public hearing that was held last night. It was advertised in the Oakland Press, a paper that I don't know how many residents actually have a subscription to, rather than in the Southfield Sun that goes to every home in our community. It was said last night, which I predicted this, it was said last night it was put in the Oakland Press because the timing didn't fit with the Southfield Sun. I'm wondering, what is the rush on this? Why couldn't we have enough time to put it in the Southfield Sun so that people could come and give their input? I don't believe that wanting public input is a sincere want. And then I also did a little research, and the chain of events shows that city leadership isn't following our city charter, our ordinances, or the Open Meetings Act. So if you go back, the Historic Commission met in May 18th of 2012. I'm a mortgage loan officer. officer. The lender isn't going to pick apart details of the city's infrastructure system. The city has the responsibility to make sure that any development that comes here doesn't put further strain on our already inadequate system. A resident asked last night at the meeting for an infrastructure report at the planning commission, and I don't know, is there one? I haven't seen one, it's not anywhere out there. What studies have been done to show the effects of this project on our water system and our sewer system? Also, our building ordinance requires that the fire marshal be consulted. I know that the Southfield Fire Chief hasn't been involved in the planning. He didn't even know about the project, and that was about a week and a half ago. Again, we are missing steps in our policies, processes, and procedures. I don't think we can afford to do that. We have had the same planners for many years, and we have paid them a lot of money. We still have no cohesive development plan. We are reactive rather than proactive. They make money to manage the projects that they recommend. And the stakeholders, the residents, aren't invited to the table. I think it's time to make a change.
Quick question.
Sure.
So have they tabled the discussion to build a condo on that vacant property between California and Golden Gate? So they're gonna have these two? That is.
We're gonna get to that, but yeah, the other properties that are also in discussion, yeah.
But they're talking about building.
No, it's
but
not
gonna
different,
be
it's
in the
right in the same
area.
proximity,
Yes.
yes.
It's a triangle piece of property that's over here the city bought a while back, tore down the structure with the purpose of being green space. Apparently they're considering developing that with townhouses now.
The strain on the infrastructure with all of this is unbelievable.
And we didn't really even talk about
It is a
traffic
big project.
and the fact that, you know, if it is a workforce housing, you're gonna have 100 and some cars every morning, presumably trying to get onto either Southfield Road or 12 Mile or 11 through the already, I would say,
avoid
congested
it.
northeast
Traffic light, yeah.
quadrant. All right, well, so what we wanted to touch on just really quickly is to show that, you know, it is worth doing these things. Juan's gonna talk a little bit about why, I mean, you guys obviously do care, you came out tonight, but why it's important to care and why it's important to communicate with the city and be involved. So go ahead and go to the next slide.
Okay. So, I want to talk about why we care, or why we should care. And I do have a slide coming up that shows those triangle properties. One of the things that's lovely about our winding streets is that they are winding, and these curvilinear shapes create triangles, and those triangles create vistas and a view, a way to look at a group of houses, not just down a straight street. You can actually see in Lathrup. It's one of the more beautiful aspects. It's kind of an interesting and very unique aspect of Lathrup. So I wrote, preserve our green spaces. I think that's important to a lot of us, or to all of us, because we were attracted to live here and invest here. And I think of those green spaces as buffer zones. Before we developed every last bit along Southfield Road, there were swaths of trees and undeveloped land, and we had ice rinks, and we had, you know, in the winter, just using the cold weather, we had kids climbing trees. We had more of a rural feel. We lost a lot of that along the perimeter, but on the interior, you know, we have these nice green buffers. And so, you know, council right now is considering using some of those vacant properties to try to make money. And when we lost the house in the woods, which was our historic property, we used to have 4, now we have 3. We had council who really wanted to build a whole bunch of houses right there. 9 houses was the proposal. And instead, a resident stepped forward and said, you know what, my backyard is this property. I want to keep it. I want to keep it. I want to keep the trees. I love the trees. That's why I moved here. Don Ferguson. So now the land surrounding the Annie Lathrup School and what little remains between the neighborhood and Southwood Road is threatened with redevelopment. And one of the proposals included the entire green space behind Annie Lathrup. It just happened here in a meeting. Sam Cernow admit that the school refused to meet with him, but he went multiple times to try to get that last strip where our track is. Instead, he settled on
Yeah, the strip that belongs, actually, it's
To-
needed from Southfield schools, but
Yes.
it has to be used for educational purposes.
That's right. So, yep, so it's hands off on that, but, and then this is, people in the preserve our parks and green, movement, they say, there's a lot of truth in the saying, the less green, the more mean. It actually is scientifically proven that when you have a whole lot of hardscape cement and, city ugliness, it actually creates an environment that brings out not the niceness and not the beauty and not the good feelings. And we have that in spades, at least we can if we preserve it. All right, so this plot is 4.08 acres, and they are planning on building edge to edge. Okay, next slide. Okay, so here we go. So here's, if you can make this out, this was on the flyers too. The purple hexagon is considered the village center. And there's a triangle to the upper right and a triangle to the lower left. And I tried to indicate the satellite view or whatever that is from above. Those are undeveloped. Now they're not really well maintained, and I asked former Councilman Bruce Kopeth, what did we used to do with that? How do we handle it? He goes, it's not a big deal. When trees fall over, there's dead wood in there, and people think it looks unsightly, they would just give city council a call and they would go clean it up. Send a crew. It's not a big deal at all to keep it nice. Yet right now they're being threatened. The one to the upper right is being considered as overflow parking for this development, and the one to the bottom left is being considered for a like a condo. And I don't think I grabbed a slide, but those are all on the Lathrup Village Voice. And if you reach out to me, I can make sure you have like a direct link to those documents. Okay, and then just at the bottom, there's a view, that street view of what they're planning to put right there. What?
There's a request for qualification that has gone out, looking for developers for these two triangle properties.
That's right.
And it was supposed to be due on January 15th, it's now due on January 29th. But if, normally when you put out bids or put out a request for a quote, there's a deadline, and then there's a bid opening process that's open to the public, and so everybody can see what the plans are and all that kind of stuff. Well, this request for qualification does not include that. There's the cutoff date for submitting, and then it basically leaves it up to city council to choose a developer that they want to work with, and then they will be able to do these plans. And there is no there's no requirement that residents are involved or, that we have any input into the process.
It's out of order. Residents haven't said we have a need, and they're meeting a need. They're saying, hey, who can we get to do something? What are other people's ideas? Well, what about, what residents want? Sorry. Okay, next slide.
Well, just before you do that, I just noticed this is Annie Lathrup Park.
Yeah.
I don't know who drew this line in, but this is our path.
Cerno drew that. That's Cernow's
It's their
So
survey.
either
rendering. Yeah, that's their
Cerno
survey.
We build on his property,
Yeah, one or the other.
but it would suggest that path is gonna be gone.
Yeah. Just to be clear, those two triangles are separate from the Annie Lathrup proposal. But they do indicate sort of directionally where we're headed as a community if we don't get more involved or find a way to get more involved.
Bruce, go back to that slide for a second.
I'm sorry?
Can you go back to that?
There you go. It's always good to have an attorney in the audience.
Because we built on other people's land, that's fine. That's right. So I included this because in urban planning, mistakes can be made, and they can be mistakes that everyone thought was a good idea at first, you know, or at least the developers did. And these are two slides. The one on the left is in France, and that's the before is on the top. They put parking everywhere, and they uglified their beautiful, you know, city, and they spent a lot of money to undo that mistake, and they were able to do it. It's parking that they were able to pull up, and that's not cheap, but it's not you know, the loss of a historic building. But nonetheless, I thought that was interesting. And then the one on the right, oh wait, go back. The one on the right is Dusseldorf, and you can see they put major you know, investment in a road that they thought was a good idea, and they realized this is really a terrible idea, and they undid that. And I just think, wow, what an expensive mistake, but at least you can fix it, you know. But what happens, go next slide, when you make a mistake that can't be fixed, right? So here you have the coastline of Brazil, and they just lost all their green space. It's just that, and that just makes me heartsick, just heartsick. You know, it's still a tourist destination, I suppose, but not the beach or the city that calls to me.
Yeah, and I think you were saying the takeaway from anything that you look at in a city's lifetime is the city becomes what it becomes one decision at a time. And you know, it's when you look at a picture like this, you think, well, how did this ever happen? But it happened a lot like what we're talking about now, where one piece of property gets changed into something else, and then opens the door for another and another. So it's just really important that we, as the residents, be on watch for what we want to have happen.
So I just wanted to make you all aware that Surnow is the developer, and they do know how to refurbish, repurpose older buildings. In fact, they did that beautifully in Birmingham, won awards, and now their offices are in there. Meanwhile, Surnow, same developer, decided that it was best and easiest and you know, a great idea to tear down our town hall, which we lost in 1998, and that's what spurred our historic commission, you know, in society, which is great, but they need to protect what we have left.
So with that, and thank you for already jumping in with questions, but now we want to open it up just for discussion, and we encourage anybody to just, you can raise your hand and stand up and talk. I was going to try to bring mics out in the audience. I think just hopefully you can speak loud. If not, the wires aren't quite as long as I'd hope. So yeah, first, but red second, but first, yes. There. The man in the glasses and the sweatshirt.
Yeah,
You.
I just have a little update. If you go back to
Sure.
the purple slide showing the central area, shows the areas in red.
Yeah.
There is an additional city property on this.
Oh.
If you look at the triangle on the left side there,
Yeah.
see the little sliver up and to the left.
There's a little rectangle.
The little,
That little rectangle?
Oh, right there.
That property there is a very oddball property. It's very small. It's actually comprised of, I believe, 3 tiny slivers of lots. This was returned to the city by the county after a default on taxes. So it's a little bit of property that could be something.
Yeah.
And I also note that, has anybody seen any snow removal on any of these properties? Minor things. Michigan now has a strict liability law as of January 1st about that, so the city could be found liable if somebody slips past that.
Can people hear, or would you rather they come
You can
up to
come
the
up to
microphone?
Yeah,
Yeah.
the alternative is I can give you this mic, but you have to come up. I can bring it to the floor, I think, although we shortened this wire earlier. Oh, there you go, that'd be perfect. Yeah, I'll put this one down.
Diane, would you like to come up, speak? Diane is a longtime resident. And I reached out to Diane because I'd heard she knew things I would be interested in hearing, and she sure does.
Hi. Well, I'm Diane Anderson, and I just turned 76 on Monday.
Happy birthday.
My parents built the first house in Lathrup after World War II. It's on Bungalow in 1946. Louise swept by, bought it off of them. They built a second one, and finally, the one that I grew up in on San Jose, we were in from 1951 until 2012 when Mom was a victim of elder abuse and the house was stolen. So Lathrup is in my DNA, and I'm a history major, so I'd like to tell you a little bit about Mr. Cerno and the school. The school was built by Louise as a private school. And if you haven't been in it, and I can tell you every single room because I went K through 12 there and Mom taught there, those chimneys aren't any chimneys. Louise did a grand tour of England, and they are direct copies off of chimneys on a manor house in England. They're unbelievable. There's Pewabic tile around the first grade classroom. It's just the most marvelous school, but Cerno has been engaging in what they call demolition by neglect. He was storing cookies in there from their cookie company. It's just unbelievable the things that the councils have let him get away with. So that school then was created by Louise as a private school, and it was later on deeded to the Southfield Public Schools with the caveat, it's for education purposes only. And that school was far more than a school. It was the beating heart of Lathrup. It's where we had the spring carnivals, the summer carnivals, the Feast of Carols, the tree lighting. It's where the Lathrup Village the Lathrup Village Women's Club was founded, and that was in February of 1939, and a few months later, in November, the Three Flags chapter of the Daughters of the American Revolution, still going, I'm a member of that chapter, was founded in the school. The playground was also very important because that was our recreation center. That's where you had baseball games with the Little League. That's where you had basketball. I was part of the Cannonballers that played after school. It really was our heart. It became more important with every passing year because as the city developed, the skating rinks that were in what is now that circle of Stanford Court in California, that they went, Campbell's Playground went, and all that we had left was the school as our beating heart and our recreation center. Now, as Autumn said, back in 1992 actually, the old town hall was purchased by Cerno. The council at the time had made a serious mistake. Doug Hardy had owned it originally. He'd offered it to the city. The city said, no, thank you. And there was a big protest movement. In fact, I have a picture of some of us demonstrating back in 1992 to save the old town hall. And when that failed in 1992, that's when Mom and some of the other folks created the Historical Society. And the purpose of the Historical Society was not only to teach about Lathrup's history, but to get the creation of the historic district and specifically to save the school. Now, we recognized at the time that the school would not necessarily be a school anymore, but there were all kinds of creative suggestions that could be done. The two classrooms on the south end of it that were put on in 1954, that extension, that was going to be the upstairs, the archive for Lathrup, because we don't have a place to store the archives properly. The bottom was going to be the historical museum. We were going to then have mixed use in there, get shops in, like if you go along 12 Mile in Birmingham now, and you can see the kind of things that they have. There's an Irish goods store, there's an antique store, all kinds of wonderful little businesses that are upmarket that would attract people here as a destination. That's what it should have been, but it's not. And it's not because Cerno has worked hand in glove with successive councils to engage in demolition by neglect. I have documents in which Cerno is having a hissy fit because he wasn't allowed to just tear the thing down originally. And when he tore down the old town hall, as I say, he promised, cross my heart and hope to die, every building I build is going to be that same quality. It's going to be wonderful. Look across the street and ask yourself, do you think that's wonderful? The reality is that the school is part of a streetscape. And that streetscape, you can hear about if you go online. There's a video that Pat Gorin from the Old Historical Society group, and Mum wrote, she narrates it, Mum wrote the script. And you will hear on that video, driving down Southfield Road is like going through colonial Williamsburg. Is that how you feel today? I went to, it's not Kinko's, FedEx to run something off before I came here, and I practically keeled over with the stench of the odor from the restaurant. We didn't have restaurants in a bedroom community except the old colonial dining room that had no houses around it. The reality is that there are so many creative things that could be done with the school, and keeping that area for parkland along with the school itself is part of it. This notion that Cerno has got, that he can do whatever he wants with it, and one of the things you should be aware of, I don't know, maybe you folks can tell me, but at one stage he was talking about the missing middle. And that's money that comes from the state, but it's for low-income housing. People with household incomes of $39,000 to $79,000 a year. And if that's what's coming in, that's not going to do much for your property values here in Lathrup, I can tell you. The other thing I think that it's important to mention, because I'm going on much too long, but I love the place so much, as I say, it's in my DNA, is that this notion that building apartments is a good idea. When Mom's house was stolen, and mine too, I'm now a renter. And I can tell you, renting is not a nice thing to do. People come and go, you don't know who your neighbors are, you've got very little control about what goes on around you. I'm in those townhouses on Southfield Road between Lincoln and 14 that have been there since about 1949. And of the 30 units, 8 of them are vacant. One in my building, there's 4 units in my building, has been vacant since November of 2023. I drive all through Birmingham. There's vacancies all over the place. In fact, there's rental vacancies everywhere you look. So if you think bringing in a whole lot of apartments with strangers, doing all the bad things the other speakers have talked about, taking away parkland, infrastructure problems. Also, don't think for a minute that they're all going to be filled, and particularly if he's talking $1,500 a month. There's a real contradiction there where he's getting this money from, because if it's from the missing middle, he can't charge that. If he's getting it entirely somehow from the federal government, well, maybe he can. So, having waffled on forever and a day, if any of you would like any background information on the school, I've written papers about Lathrup School as the beating heart of Lathrup. I've written a paper for the council that they couldn't care less about what a bedroom community is, and what they're turning Lathrup into is no bedroom community, let me tell you. I've also got a list, if you want to see a list of the stores that are a 12 mile in Berkeley, which I keep asking the council, why don't you put up that kind of lovely thing that brings people here as a destination? But as these speakers have said, this council, in my association, which basically now is 74-year association with Lathrup, this is the worst council I've ever encountered, in my opinion. And the mayor and the mayor pro tem, this is my opinion, it's not necessarily a fact, but I think those 2 people working with Cerno have done more harm to Lathrup in this short period of time than in the entire 5 previous decades put together. So I hope you get out and you tell your neighbors how important it is to show up and take on this council that to me seems to be totally in bed with the developers, has no affection for Lathrup's history, and disrespects the residents.
Anybody else like to speak or have questions about anything that heard? I think, one of the things that we're hoping is just that we are able to communicate how much the community wants to be involved. I think there are lots of interesting ideas for how that space could have been used. I don't think any of us are suggesting that we can tell, sort of what he can do with the building, but there are ordinances, there are requirements, and then there's just general responsibility as a member of the community for what you do with a building. So that said, I think, there's a few things that we can absolutely do. First of all, it's not a done deal. City council can, for one of the things they could do, is choose to accept the historical district, uphold the historical district commission's rejection of the proposal, and then so now his group would go back to them first, and also to city council, and there could be more discussions, and hopefully within that part of the process, there'd be also more public participation in those discussions. So that's one thing that can happen. City council and the planning commission can shape that development through ordinances. They can make it a better place for us, or they can make it a worse one. And they have that power through the ordinances that are already in place, or ones that they might choose to put in place. And finally, the developer certainly has recourse to continue discussions with the commissions and also with the community. So all those are good things that could happen, and we would like to see those happen. And we think that the key to making those things happen is basically for all of us and others to speak up, to attend the city council meetings and the planning commission meetings when you can, to watch them if you can see recordings or see a lot of them being live streamed. Let the council members know your thoughts and concerns. Certainly we're all voters as well as residents, and so that's a powerful thing to be. And finally, talk to your neighbors and friends, and maybe the next time we all get together, we'll be in an actual city council town hall or one like this, but either way, maybe there'll be twice as many people next time. But again, there are good outcomes that can come. This is not a done deal. And there's a process in place to make that happen, but it doesn't happen if the process isn't followed, and that won't necessarily happen unless we let them know that's what we want.
Dates and times for the next city council and planning commission meetings?
Yes, we do, yes. The 27th of this month is the next study session and council meeting. The study sessions are not, yes, and there's handouts on that table. The study sessions are not recorded or live streamed, but the council meetings following are, they start at 7.
Awesome, thank you.
In the back, in the far back first?
So
Oh.
what suggestions do you? Would you stand up? Oh, thank you. So what suggestions do you have in regards to those triangles, which are owned by, I believe one is owned by the EDA, and the others are owned by the city? And since they have already requested RFQs for the development of those properties, and according to the RFQs, they have to pay $5,000 to $10,000
Just to submit a bid, they have to pay that? Oh, wow, okay.
So.
Isn't that like they get that money back though, if they don't accept it? Something? Yeah, okay, but that's still interesting, yeah.
Yeah, so it's kind of like, yeah, okay, we accept your bid, so basically you can start doing whatever you want.
Right, so,
What suggestions do you have, because it seems like the process is already in place. The bid is out there, they have a due date.
well, can I answer you first, and then I hope the others will answer, but when I was leafleting, one of the residents I spoke with said he had a friend who was hoping to put in a bid. So, what can we do? Well, we can speak up and say, can't just accept, whatever is proposed, right? We can make our presence known and be involved in that process. But you're right, I mean, people are interested in submitting proposals, and who knows? So what is your, Karen?
I just think that we need to let our neighbors know. There are so many people that don't have a clue about what's going on. Many times it's because don't pay attention until it impacts them directly, which I totally get that.
Or you see a bulldozer.
But we need to get the word out, because coming to city council meetings, I'm sorry, you get 3 minutes, you get gaveled, no one responds to your questions, no one gets back with you afterwards. It appeared to be the same thing last night at the planning commission meeting. Very disappointing. We have no avenues for discussion, for dialogue, for council to listen to what is important to the residents. So I don't know, I think we need to, just reach out to our neighbors and friends and just spread the word about what's going on. And I think that we, as I said at the very beginning, residents are at the top of the organizational chart. Everything that's done here is supposed to be for our benefit and the benefit of our community. And I just feel like we've been ignored. And that isn't how it should be. We're a wonderful community. We're a small community. We have so many people that are loyal to this community, and want to stay here. But if things continue the way they are, I mean, for the first time, I've thought about selling my house and leaving Lathrup Village, and I never thought I would say that.
Can I just want to add one more thing. When our historic district was submitted to the National Registry of Historic Places, our Triangle Parks were mentioned in that as contributing properties to the beauty of our neighborhood. So I think I would stand up and talk at council and say, please leave them as they are, maybe take the dead wood out, please leave them as they are.
They can't leave them as they are, they have to commit to maintaining them.
Okay, that's what I mean, yes.
They have to be
Yes.
maintained if we're gonna keep them as
Okay,
a
good
city,
point.
but I think that's certainly a reasonable idea. Somebody over here was, actually, I'm gonna try to go in order, sorry, way in the back, go ahead. Sorry.
I just wanted to speak to those two triangles. So I went to so it first got brought up at a DDA meeting, and so I went because I'm really upset about the possibility of developing those. As everyone's saying, I think that is huge to part of what makes Lathrup so special is our green spaces and those triangles. So when I went to the DDA meeting, it was brought up as a feasibility study, but there was mention, Austin kind of off cuff said that him and Mike were kind of talking, and together they said, oh, well, we have these properties, like, why don't we do something with them? Why don't we develop them? So basically that tells me that idea just came from the DDA director and our city administrator were talking and said, oh, this seems like a great idea. Instead of what they've been saying, instead of, well, if this doesn't affect them, this affects us. What do we want as residents? And so, why don't we preserve these and turn them into rain gardens? One of the biggest issues in Lathrup is flooding. I think we can all say, I don't know if anyone has owned a house in Lathrup. If you have not had a basement flood and you own a house in Lathrup, like, you knock on some wood, like, you're doing great. But why don't we, taking down those green spaces is only going to increase our flooding issues. Why don't we take advantage of that and turn them into some rain gardens, or do something that, I feel like there's a million things you could do that are cost effective. We have a tree committee, we have a nature committee, like, why don't they get together? And I'm sure they could come up with, lots of ways to beautify that space, maybe even make it into a little park that would not cost the city that much money, but actually save the city money in terms of the flooding and some of the infrastructure. So I don't know, in terms of what to do, I feel like that meeting was not that long ago. And then I feel like I didn't hear anything else, and then all of a sudden those signs popped up. So I know on the sheets there is contact information for city council, but there isn't for the DDA. But so officially the DDA owns this triangle over here behind the school. Was it California? And the DDA owns this lot. The city owns this lot. So the DDA, so the feasibility report, I think it was from GW2, Griffins came and presented it to the DDA. And then the city said, oh, well, that lot is a similar size, so we're just gonna, take that same feasibility report. So this technically is a DDA decision, that technically is a city decision. So all that to say, I think it's important to contact the DDA board also individually and express your concerns for what you want to see in addition to the city council.
A resident tried to get contact information for the DDA board members, and that was denied, saying it would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Now, I'm not sure how that is, because that's about transparency. And, you know, we have people serving on our commissions, we should be able to contact them. So I'm not sure, but I know that a resident did try to get the contact information for them.
As far as what to do, those triangles, those plans, so we developed a triangle park, Stratford Park. I never. So we took one of the triangles and turned it into a park. What a great idea. Thank you. It's an excellent.
Thank you for that, that was great. Sorry, just behind you, ma'am, and then over there, and then back to you.
So I get that the majority of the people here are against this project, and I'm just thinking down the road here. So let's say that Cerno goes back, they get rid of the first floor residences, they do everything so they meet the codes, they meet all the ordinances and everything, and this gets approved, okay? So I did not hear anybody today talk about what can we possibly do before it gets to that point, or if it gets to that point.
Well, my response to that is basically, whatever is built, they will come. If it's a giant apartment building with retail underneath, we're gonna get that. Might be half empty, I don't know. But if we allow, the building at all, it will be there. And then, for example, a lot of other communities that have had middle income housing built, in 5 years the cap is lifted and then it can become anything, including voucher housing. That's something I've been reading, that's been happening in other communities. But personally, I just want to add, I would love some good grocery stores, or maybe a bodega. Emil mentioned grocery stores and how there is a lack of them here, and that should be somewhere here, I think. Maybe not. Maybe as a bedroom community, we can drive a mile. But in any case, if we build it, what?
I think the important thing is that residents should come together to make the decisions about what we want here. I was on planning commission for 5 years. I've watched it continue. We are reactive, not proactive. There's nothing put in place to plan what we want this community to look like. We have somebody come, they want to do something, and the ordinance gets changed to accommodate them. That is not how this city should be run. And that's what I'm saying about Giffords Webster. We have worked with them for many years. They are, doing our planning, recommending plans, and then they make money off of it because they manage it. Then they get 15 to 17%. So I don't see, again, no checks and balances there. Who is looking out for Lathrup? At the meeting last night, a resident who wasn't familiar with who the people were thought that our DDA director and the Giffords Webster representative were there on behalf of the Cerno company. They didn't have any idea that they were our staff member and the planner that we pay. He thought that they were there representing the best interests of Cerno company.
Because they were.
And that is not how it's supposed to be.
And just to go back to your question, though, I think it's really interesting because that could happen. So I think that's, again, why we thought we need to have a meeting sooner than later, more people than fewer. And I think I wanted to just jump off of something that Karen said, and I understand why she'd be frustrated and cynical about the responsiveness of these different groups, because historically, or at least in recent history anyways, that's been the case. But I've also witnessed a number of times where one or another of those groups has about faced on something, and it's always happened in a room that was full, in a room that was full of people like you that were willing to stand up and say what they wanted. And one of them was the House in the Woods spot, and there's been a few other places where it seemed like it was a done deal, and then that deal got changed. And I think, you know, it has to, in the past, they've been able to, yeah, to your point, not be responsive to questions, et cetera, but it's also looked a lot like the same people. So if they're willing to ignore those 20 people or those 18 people, they've already assessed that risk, and then they say, we can ignore them because they're the loud ones. I think when they get in a room of people that weren't there before, that people that they haven't seen before, and when it's a big crowd and when one person after the other says the same thing, they actually are responsive, because for better or worse, and they are politicians too. And that's their job, is to respond to public pressure as much as anything else. So I would still, at DDA meetings, just be involved as much as you can and as loud as you can. And you may not agree with everything that this group said, that's fine. But it's not fine to not say what you do want, because then nobody else will be saying it for you. So I wanted to say I'm optimistic about this. I know it seems like a lot of doom and gloom, and I could be totally wrong, but I think if we stay optimistic and act, it's better than if we're not. I have to go to the woman that left. I'm so sorry. That's terrible. Sure, go ahead.
Yeah, just real quick, based on the magnitude of this decision and the impact it's gonna have on the city, why isn't this being moved to a vote by the residents? And what's involved in moving it in that direction? Do we need city council to approve that?
You guys can speak to sort of procedure on.
No, if city council doesn't call for it, residents can petition to have something put on the ballot, but it's a really difficult
Agreed, you have to get so many
process.
signatures and so forth.
Right,
So why can't we
size.
pressure city council or try and shame them into putting it on the ballot? They don't need to go through all that, right?
Good point.
Yeah, no, I think that is a good tech, and something people should talk about. Sorry, way over there, then back.
So it's always all about the money, right? The bottom line is you follow the Benjamins. And I've watched the city council meetings, and what I hear repeatedly is that financially we're not healthy. We need more revenue in the city. And so the Headley Amendment depresses the taxes, this, that, and the other thing. So financially, the city needs more money to maintain the police that we appreciate very much and the services that we appreciate very much. So to get that money, we don't want apartments that we get 4% based on the occupancy rate. What we want, kind of to your question, what do we want? We want private residences that appreciate in value, that help grow the tax base. We want stores or whatever that pay taxes. We want revenue. And we're not gonna get revenue based on what I heard tonight from these apartment buildings. So I think that's what we have to insist on, is that this is all being done to preserve a building, but also to grow the financials of the city. And to grow the financials of the city, we need to enhance the tax base. Just a thought.
And control our spending.
So,
That's
you wanna
right.
speak?
I just want to say something. Excuse my accent, okay? I live close to one of those triangles over there. Okay? Legally infected.
We still need the mic, sorry.
We got a bunch of deals around our community, okay? The area there is close to my house in California and Golden Gate. It's a beautiful area to do something with it. I mean, I'm willing to get a bunch of people and work, clean it up. You know, have something beautiful there. The community is beautiful. I've been almost 16 years in this community. I love it. I love all the neighbors. They go by my house and they wait to meet my neighbor here. That's my best neighbor right there. You know, we help each other. And that's what we need to do. We need to come together and fight these people that want to build things that we don't want. What you gotta do here is have a bunch of car junks in there working in a parking lot. Huh? For what? Let's keep the community beautiful the way it is. And fight these people because they are nothing. If we are together, they are nothing. Okay? We can fight together, we can fight because in the union, the power is with the union. Okay? And I'm willing to fight with you guys. Okay? Thank you.
Anybody else? Nope, a lot. Okay, I don't have an order now, so I'll just go ahead, sir, and then I'll go in the next row.
In reviewing the pilot program summary, I believe Charno is a for-profit corporation, right?
Yes.
It says right here that the applicant must be a nonprofit housing corporation to use the pilot program. So I don't see how they're gonna do anything that they wanna do in this proposed program.
I'm afraid that was reconsidered in Michigan last fall. I believe that changed.
So this one's written in there right now.
All right.
They gave us,
Well, that would be hopeful. That was true. Yeah.
Just because it's easier for you, go ahead.
I don't know if I need a mic, I pretty much project
We can hear you. We can
quite a
hear you.
bit. I for one don't go to all the city council meetings, I'm pretty bad about that, I let my husband do it for me. But I for one, and I challenge as many of you as possible in this room, let's go to the next one, let's make a stance, let's show a little more than the 12 people or the 8 people that normally go, just to let them know that we are concerned about this. I'm gonna go.
Okay, we're getting lots of people. I'll come back. Go ahead, sir. And then back there, and then.
Hi, my name is Tim Hillman. I'm a relatively new Lathrup Village resident. Thank you. Okay. My partner and I bought our house at San Quentin in Bloomfield 4 years ago, in large part because of its historical and architectural appeal. So certainly I share so many of what I presume to be your concerns about things like architectural and historical significance. I'm also a new member of the Planning Commission. Yesterday's meeting, I believe, was my 4th. It might have been my 5th, but I believe it was my 4th. So certainly I'm still getting my bearings, learning the ropes, understanding the procedures, etc. But civic engagement is and has always been important to me, so I figured commissions like this one would be a kind of good entree into becoming more involved. So I thought I'd come up here and hopefully help absolve some of the concerns that I understand exist. I already shared the first one, and I'm speaking for myself, but I know that there are other planning commissions that share my appreciation for architectural and historical significance and integrity. I also have and share so many of your concerns with the site plan itself. And those concerns were discussed by me and others on the Planning Commission at our December meeting. They include concerns like parking.
May I interrupt for just 1 second?
Sure.
It was made clear to us that you may speak as a private citizen,
Oh,
but
yeah.
you're not supposed to speak for the group.
Oh, no,
Okay,
I'm not,
okay,
yeah.
just checking.
Absolutely Like I said, I'm a very new planning commissioner, so I could not speak for the group, even if I wanted to. I wouldn't know how to. I also said that I was still learning the ropes, so apparently I should have said that at the beginning. If you were to attend or to view in hindsight the December meeting, you would see that the Planning Commission is in fact talking about many of the concerns that were brought up tonight. I started mentioning a few of them: parking, building materials, the demands on infrastructure, the demands on city services. I also shared concerns about communication. I attend plenty of council meetings. I figure out when those council meetings are simply by going to the city website and looking at the calendar. I suppose in a perfect world there would be a more direct invitation. That's probably something the city should do a better job at. But the information about when and the agenda items per meeting is available, and I would encourage you to be perhaps proactive on that front, because it's what I've been myself required to do in order to know when so many things are happening. The final concern that I have is for public input. At the December meeting, I suggested we include a second public comment section on the agenda. And so I can assure you that that is very important to me as well. I'll certainly continue to advocate for that going forward. Going back to the very beginning, I am a new resident and I am a new planning commissioner. And I'm saying this earnestly. I'm routinely very impressed by the passion and strong feelings that my neighbors, all of which you are, feel for this community. I've got two final pieces of advice, and some of them have already been, and one of the two of them has already been expressed. I do encourage people to show up and articulate your thoughts and concerns. There's a planning commission meeting on February 18th. I expect that Cerno Group will be present again to propose a revision to their site plan. And somebody already communicated that the date of the next city council meeting. But here's my earnest and savvy request. We gotta turn the temperature down. And again, I'm not speaking to this group specifically, I'm speaking to the community at large. As a relatively young resident and as a relatively new resident, it can be very, very discouraging to be active and to be engaged when the environment feels hostile. So, in addition to participation, I really, really, really encourage all of us to participate with dignity and to participate with respect at the forefront. And I see that happening when we're together in person. I don't always see that happening on the internet. So I'll shut up, but my rallying cry to all of us, including me, is to remember that we're neighbors and that first and foremost we should treat each other neighborly and put down the sword and start working together in a more friendly fashion so that we can actually get something done. So, thank you.
Hey, in the back? You, no, you.
Yes.
You guys hear me okay? Yeah. Okay. My wife and I, Kevin Tardini, by the way. So, I know some of you love this neighborhood. Like
I take it back, it'll be easier for you, I'm just kidding.
All right, little coffee talk here. My name is Kevin Tardini. My wife Maureen brought me here tonight. I had no idea this was even happening. And I said, we're leaving at 8 o'clock. It's 8:35, so clearly this is whole presentation. Thank you all for bringing this to our attention. This is deeply concerning. We've been here, we're gonna be 26 years. My biggest concern is the way from what you're describing, how we just don't know about any of this. And this goes directly to our city council. There seems to be a lot of backroom deals happening right here in our little fine community. That's unacceptable, okay? A really good way to lower the temperature is to have a city council we can trust, who are treating our residents the way we should be treated. Because I'm gonna tell you, we can be as friendly as we can, and we will. And I've done the Lathrup wave to everybody. That was the first thing we noticed, okay? When we are mistreated like this, and we have been, that's a different game. This is just serious. There needs to be some serious conversation and attendance. Sue, I'm with you. I'll be here Monday. I had plans on changing them. I think we all need to be engaged in this, and whatever I can do to help distribute information. I only got this flyer tonight.
Glad you got it.
I might have thrown it out. Did it end up in my mailbox? Or how was it distributed? I'd like to help.
Different people had different techniques.
Okay. All right, but I would be happy to be involved with this.
I would like to mention that we spent $100 on a sign, a vinyl sign that we put up on Pete Truza's yard. He agreed, which was kind of brave of him. And within hours, our city code enforcer was on his front doorstep telling him he had to take it down, and Pete complied. And then Lori Kuntz volunteered, and thank you, Bob, for the two of you and your strong stance and willingness to stand up and let a sign be on your yard. But it was incredible. The inspector must have, I don't know, followed my car to bring you the sign, and he was there on Lori's doorstep within minutes, really, while she was still hammering the stake in the ground. It was very disconcerting, and it was only going to be up for a day, our sign.
Yeah,
That's not the city that I moved into.
No.
But we still don't know anything about the shootings from June or the fire where someone died. We have no, information about those things, but they can go around and pull out signs.
Right, and I'm sure there's a lot of other things. I don't want to turn this into a gripe session, but
Okay,
this got my attention. We'll be here all night, and I can't. I'm supposed to be out here by 8 o'clock.
I'm so glad you're here. Thank you.
So I do have one more question, and I'll hand this over to somebody else. So the way our council has been acting so far, in not such a friendly way, have you looked into some potential legal remedies? In case our voices are ignored. And I'll leave it. That's the last option.
Well, I don't want to segue into the whole petition drive that we found fraudulent signatures on, but we took that to the court and we filed too late. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get justice.
Yeah.
And there's no money to be made, so it's not something that,
Yeah, none of this makes any sense. Let's just say it how it is. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge my beautiful wife, and I thank her for all the help and preparation.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you,
She was instrumental in helping us during our meetings before we put this together very quickly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Okay.
Well, I don't want to segue into the whole petition drive that we found fraudulent signatures on, but we took that to the court and we filed too late. I mean, it's hard. It's hard to get justice.
Yeah.
And there's no money to be made, so it's not something that,
Yeah, none of this makes any sense. Let's just say how it is. Okay.
Thank you. I just want to take a minute to acknowledge my beautiful wife, and I thank her for all the help and preparation.
Thank you,
Karen.
Karen.
Thank you. She was instrumental in helping us during our meetings before we put this together very quickly.
Yeah.
Go ahead, sir. Okay. Sorry.
Hey, hello, I'll be brief. My name is Terrence Hicks, and a former planning commission here, more than 20-year resident. And, that was one of the things that I was driven to move here for us because of the architecture, the unique architecture, the distinctive homes, and that's one of the reasons that we moved here and raised our kids more than 20 years ago. But I wanted to ask a question, and I don't know if it's appealing to everybody gathered here, but what the plans were. I may have missed that for the Annie Lathrup School. I mean, as far as in keeping with the architecture, has there been any consideration for lofts or otherwise in the building and keeping with the architecture? I don't know.
The understanding is the building that exists now won't have apartments in it. It'll have primarily a pickleball court and some additional accessory spaces, specifically for the use of the residents. Also, that building is going to be gutted out so that while the front is the original front, the facade, the inside will be primarily rebuilt and the two sides and back. So it's going to be significantly restructured and not necessarily used for much else.
Okay, I just want.
Yeah.
Well, we have the plans are going to be online. Are you on Facebook? Because they're on the Facebook Village Voice page, and also there's a piece of paper to pick up on your way out, and it has the name of the groups there and the councilman you can be in touch with. But the plans are online, and I can take your name and I can send them to you directly too. I want to read one thing that I think. I just wanted to mention that when we were looking at the slides of the before and after cities and the mistakes and the planning and the whatnot, I just wanted to mention how we were cut in half. I mean, originally we were planned as a city with Southfield Road going through it, but it used to be a small road. It used to be 2 lanes with a ditch on either side. And then 696 came through and cut us in half the other way. And now we're in quadrants, and that's problematic. And I just want to say that we have this school, this beautiful building, and this beautiful vista, and our beautiful homes, and all these things that we value. And maybe I'm repeating myself, but I know a young family that is thinking about moving because the green spaces are being threatened. And I know older people who are hoping to age in place. And there's really an opportunity here to help the people that live here and invested here and are the stakeholders. I like that word that Karen used. We are stakeholders. We have a stake in this place, and we need to stand up and make it what we want. So what they have planned hopefully doesn't matter, because we can change those plans while we have a chance.
I wanted to just real quickly say something about, because we had two sort of contributions in a row, and I think they're both right, but I think they're also at odds. And one was the temperature is too high, and things aren't being accomplished. Not because of that, but in that context, okay? Like, that context doesn't help. But at the same time, we have a lot of very angry residents. I think when you have angry people acting politely, and you have council members, other groups feeling like they're under the gun, trying to act politely, that's not real, right? That's not real politeness. It's some other, the tension is still there. It takes a huge amount of energy to do what you asked when people are angry, to try to stay to calm. But to that point, I would say it's well worth the effort. You don't want to be the person that they can point to, that anyone can point to when you're in an argument or when you're in a fight. And I think we'll all be benefited if we hold up our end of that. Now, I say our end of that because I will just say, whatever you've witnessed, we've all witnessed the reverse as well. So,
I do want to clarify. It's not my place nor my intention to suggest how people feel or how people express those feelings. Not what I'm trying to say. I'm speaking specifically as a new resident who doesn't have decades of pent-up feelings and opinions and emotions. So as a new resident, what I'm trying to convey that it is difficult to engage a space that is hot, right?
yeah, no, I get that.
So if this is a community that wants to with its younger residents. I do think it's important, if you want those young residents at the table, for the table to exist in a space that is, doesn't have to be welcoming or warm and fuzzy, but certainly not hostile.
Well, I just have to interrupt and say, when you have the residue of the yellow card, campaign.
I don't, no.
All right, I
no.
won't go there, I
No,
won't go there. All right.
he's not asking you
But
to
without
defend
accountability,
your
how can there
hostility.
be-
He's not asking any of us to defend our actions. What
All
he's
right,
saying
okay.
is, new people don't know that, and they're not gonna know that, and you can tell them, and it doesn't matter. What they know is what they witness, and and when you walk into a fight that's already going on, you probably turn around and go out. And I agree with you 100%.
I'm also not suggesting that any singular person or any group
No.
in this room are culprits of that.
No, and even if we are, even if we all are, the point is still well taken. And all I'm saying is, I understand 100% where it's coming from, but I still think what we care about is effectiveness. And you're more effective, when you look like the rational, engaging person, that's all. But I thought it was interesting to hear both, first you and then the man, about being an angry, resident, and why. I think the two have to find a way to find a medium that works for everybody. Sorry, who's next?
Can we hear from Emile?
Sure, yeah. Go over there. No.
Sorry.
Sorry, she's next.
From Catherine.
I'm trying to keep track, but if I'm missing, I'm sorry.
I'm going to try to talk quickly, but just a lot of different points have come up to me. Number one, I've been disenfranchised because I wasn't a citizen for over 30 years. I finally have been able to vote, so I'm voting, I'm getting involved, because I became a citizen a year ago. But I've been in this community for 34 years. I've seen a lot of changes. And I see right now the temperature is hot. I hear strident voices on both sides, and I agree that on both sides we need to try to present ourselves and our concerns as carefully, and even with our emotions somehow we have to find a way to communicate things concisely, and even if we're not respected on the other side, we have to give respect. That's what I learned my whole life. A soft answer turneth away wrath. It's been something in my brain my whole life. If I am disrespected, I don't disrespect back. So I want to say in that sense I agree. Somehow we have to find a way. The other thing is, I think that we are dealing with huge demographic differences between me. I've been here for 34 years. My husband's been here for over 70. And the young people that are moving in, they've been here just very briefly. And everybody keeps saying, go to the website, go to the website. Well, how about all the people that don't have Facebook, don't have a smartphone, maybe don't have anything but a home phone that's got rotary? I'm serious, there are still rotary phones here in Lathrup. And we need to take that into consideration. We used to get
a newsletter. We used to get a city newsletter.
Newsletters from the city
in
hall.
print, in the mail.
And if you didn't sign up for the email copy, because we used to get email copy or at the house, then they made sure you got one at the house. And you could choose one or the other, so that the older residents or the
We deserve that. They should reinstate
Well,
that.
I'm just saying, that's just another thing where we're losing our communication with a huge group of people that are not as internet savvy. And,
Or choose not to.
or choose not to for some reason, that's true. I mean, there are a lot of people that don't want to get involved in Facebook. They don't want to be involved with anything meta. And some of that is growing now. So there's a lot of different things. And then the other thing I think is, if we could come up with a plan that says, okay, so if they redevelop Annie Lathrup, these are the things that we think would work for that. Maybe, I don't know if a group could get together and do that. And the planning commission has made, I think last year or the year before, they made some statements about how much green space we have to have on our own private lot. I think they could do that for these businesses as well. I mean, if we wanna have green space, even on each individual homeowner's lot, why can't we say that for everything? You know, I mean, they made a ruling, I don't know if it was a year or two ago, but anyway. That's my thought. I mean, we just have, I look at this new strip and it's like a heat island. And that new ice cream place is nothing like going to Clark's, nothing like going to, what's that other one? Ray's. You know, if you go to Ray's or you go to Clark's, I mean, you've got bushes and things around you, and this one is like, you sit there and your ice cream melts before you get it to your mouth. I'm sorry. It's wonderful ice cream. And I'll shut up now, sorry.
Thank you, Annette. Anybody else? Yeah, sure. I'm skipping you because you spoke already. I'll let you speak again later, Diane. No, not you. You go. Oh, you both did. All right. Well, you go ahead. There's nobody else, and then I'll go to Diane. Oh, all right. That's what we'll do. Okay. Sorry.
Bruce, could you speak to the one triangle? I know you were on city council when they tore down the house on the one triangle by these guys who left. I believe when you took the property, it was under the assumption it would remain green space. Could you speak to that? Oh,
Correct.
there you go.
Yeah, we bought it, the house was in very poor condition, and it was just, an easy choice to expand our green space. Not a huge piece of property, but every little bit helps. I was telling the group the other day when we met, to put this together, that there used to be a house back here in the corner, where there's a gazebo is. And we bought that house so we could expand our city park. You know, the idea of, you know, making available to the residents a fair chunk of land so we can do the Easter egg hunts and the pumpkin patches and all that. Now a gazebo sits on it, we have concerts. So green space is good.
Okay, I'm gonna actually change order. Go ahead, Diane. No, Diane. Am I right?
Yeah. I'm pretty loud, so I think you'll be able to hear me. I've spent 50 years in politics. And having said that, one of the things I think you ought to think about is actually running for council. Not the last council meeting, but the one right before it. There was one council member who was so disengaged, he just wanted to go home and watch TV with his wife and had to be told, no, if you're a council member, you actually stay and do your job. I also have to say that having been 50 years in politics, I split my life between Australia and Lathrup, and I was very high up in politics in Australia. There's a lot of books I put there. I know quite a bit about it. And I can honestly say in 50 years in politics, the most filthy campaign I have ever witnessed was what was done to Karen. So it's really important that you get involved in these council elections. There is such a thing as recall. Because this council, when I raised with them, we have a two-tiered citizenry in Lathrup now. We have those of you who live on the inner streets that have quiet enjoyment. But Southfield Road residents don't. They now have things all next to their homes that were never, ever, ever allowed until the last decade. And all of that has happened because people not only don't go to council meetings, but they don't stand. So if you want to combat the two-tiered citizenry and do something not just about the city, the school, but the mess that Southfield Road is, I have to tell you, I have a Birmingham friend who was coming home from the airport the other day, and she said, I haven't been to Lathrup lately. It's so tacky. And I almost burst into tears because going back to 1954, to have people calling Lathrup tacky, and I have to agree with her. So much of what has gone off in the last 5 or 6 years is truly tacky. If you make a buck at any price, and you might be interested to know, I won't read the prices, but I did go over housing values right before I came here, in Bingham Farm, Beverly Hills, and Lathrup. Up until the 1990s, Birmingham and Lathrup were the leaders in property value. Now, Bingham Farm and tiny houses are selling more than Lathrup houses. So are Beverly Hills. And if you want to get the tax revenue up again, you've got to get it back to the kind of place that it was before a lot of this tacky stuff went in.
Sir, go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a quick comment. I don't know if anybody here has any influence on this, but one of the problems with council meetings is that quite often the temperature is literally too high because meetings take place, various meetings take place in a small room upstairs and a smaller room upstairs.
They used to
And
have
now they
council
don't
meetings
stop
here.
you know, it didn't dawn on me, I'm a fairly new resident.
That's a Ray Bradbury story, that he
Yeah, when they put
bring out the worst.
the new permanently mounted cameras, I'm a techie, I thought, oh, that's a great idea. Permanently mounted cameras, you don't need an operator, they're great cameras, but now it ties us to that little room. And this is gonna be a problem on Monday.
Yeah, they did do,
Great
yeah.
if somehow meetings can happen down here. It used to be.
I think they will again if people really do
So
start showing.
they have the option.
Yeah. Got three more. I'll just go in geographic order. Yeah, Emil, go ahead, and then the man, and then.
I just have one question. I watched the planning commission meeting last night, and I know that somehow we to change the ordinance to allow first floor residential. And I didn't hear anything about a hardship. It's usually like when somebody comes to the planning commission, they say, well, what's the hardship? What, you know, what are you losing if you don't approve it? And I didn't hear that language last night. All I heard was, I mean, I agree with some of the planning commission members, it should be open, it should be inviting for the residents, because when you close things off and you know, seal them, then it feels like you're invading somebody else's space. But it wasn't asked of the turnout, what is the hardship? Why do you want to change this ordinance?
Right.
Not only that, it allow you to do it, you gotta allow everybody down Southfield to do it.
Yep.
And that wasn't the first mistake. And then Surnow didn't even show up. So, you know, to even be able to answer those types of questions. So, I mean, are they really taking it serious, or are they saying, oh, this is bad, you know, we got it, you know, we're not taking on it. I mean, if I was Surnow and you're not asking to change the ordinance, don't you think one representative should show up to answer a question?
Technically, that was not supposed to be, for Surnow. It was supposed to be a zoning amendment for the whole village center district. That was what I brought up last night, is we will open up some of the buildings where we've heard that people are living now illegally, and we would open it up to people living there legally.
Yeah,
But
they still brought up Surnow.
I know they did, and that's
And
how.
they're asking for, can we have residential on the first floor?
That's how our planning commission works. It's reactive. People come to us and say, this is what we're gonna do, and you need to change the ordinance. That is how the majority of the planning has happened. As I said, we're not proactive, it's reactive, and, you know, they want to be in that building, the city wants them to come, and so we're gonna change the ordinances, you know. But technically, it was not about Surnow.
Just a quick comment. People have been asking about talking to the planning commissioners or DDA members. Why is their phone ringing? Right. People have been asking about speaking to DDA members or planning commissioners. The only place you can find their names are on the city website and look in department. Unlike the city of Southfield, that lists all their committee members on their calendar that everybody gets. You can look at that calendar and see, the smallest commission, their members are listed. Here, you've got to hunt for the members of the committee. There's no contact information for them, but if you've got their name, maybe you can find them in a register or a phone directory or something. I was told, I was the person that asked about communicating with them, and Austin told me, no, that would be a violation of the Open Meetings Act. Looking at it, no. You know, OMA pertains to the public body. So people on the commission can't get together. But it doesn't stop a commissioner from talking to an individual. And I didn't think of it at the time, but I should have said, well, if that's the case, then any council member that has office hours and meets with an individual, by your definition, is violating the OMA. So, anyway, that's my bit. Thank you.
Yeah. This gentleman has had his hand up for a while though.
3 quick things. Last night, one of the things that was
Hey
very...
Carl, come and use the mic. Thank you for coming. Nice to see
Wish
you.
we had a mobile mic. Thank you.
Last night, one of the things was that even though it was a small room, some of us are older, and none of them would speak up very loud, and you couldn't really hear half the stuff they were saying. Number two, somebody asked a question, and one of the responses from one of the gentlemen was, we listen, but we don't talk about things,
That's the
which I
chair.
don't understand. There should be
Lester.
responses. Another thing is, the biggest meeting I ever remember at this city hall in 25 years was approximately 25 years ago when Cerno wanted to tear down the school next door. And notices got out to a lot of the community, and this meeting was overwhelmed, and that was instrumental in changing what Cerno was going to do. Another thing, if they do put in the apartments, it's going to take a lot of time to construct them. And one of the things we will have to deal with, although it's very temporary for 2 years, is the partial closing of 696 for 2 years. And all the traffic that has to go east and west and cut through everywhere, they're all going to be coming through Lathrup Village. So it's going to make everything a little worse. And I have a question on one thing that I don't totally understand. There was a proposal a few years ago of putting the divided islands and making Southfield Road very scenic and nice. And one of the things they were going to have to do was move and take away some of the green grass and make the road wider to accommodate all the lanes and the islands that were in the middle. Well, at that point, I noticed that there was less room for parking in front of all of the businesses, which are set back all uniformly up and down Southfield. And someone from the city, and I don't remember who, said that the right-of-way, it's a county road. And we can only build so far to the front because they could take the first row of all the parking from all these lots, and then there would be less parking because they would need it. So I don't understand how you could build up to 5 feet from the sidewalk if it's a county right-of-way. Because if they lost a lot of the parking, you would also have a lesser value of all of our two-story buildings, which really are not very viable because of the fact that they're up and down and you can't have an elevator or anything in there without a big expense. So the one-floor buildings are really better, but we are stuck with them. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. So I am a fairly new resident in Lathrup Village. I've been here just a couple of years, but my take that this is the first time that I've attended any kind of civic meeting for the city. My big takeaway here is that we have a business problem where the city does not have any money. And we have clearly covered the emotional side of the problem, but we need other solutions for the business side of it. So we don't want Cernow to come in, and we don't want to have them be a profitable person in this. We need other things. If the council is reactive, let's bring them things to react to. If we want a grocery store, let's try to find those people who would come in and have a grocery store here. give them a proposal to react to.
Anybody else?
We do have a DDA, a Downtown Development Authority, and that is supposed to be what they're doing, but they also are reactive. So we definitely need residents, new residents to come on and give your ideas, share your ideas, and, you know,
And
that is
also,
important.
also welcome, and, one of the more interesting things that, the council members who've been on council for longer, like, Alan Weeks here, who was on council for many years, as well as the two lovely people sitting next to me. Lathrup has very high taxes, and we've never, ever had a revenue problem. I mean, never. And what we have, unfortunately, is a, expense problem, expending. We have a spending problem, and we've been spending like never before. We spent down our general fund, like never before. And those are really interesting things to talk about, but we don't need to get into that here. But do we have a revenue problem, or do we have a spending problem? And I'm afraid that the numbers show that we have a spending problem, and we wouldn't even be looking at a Headley, or anything like that if we understood what was happening truly. But, you know, the people who are holding our purse strings are really, they need to stop. Okay, sorry.
Great point, thank
Yep.
you.
I also think, just real quick, I think one of the concerns is that this particular development can be part of that solution if it's planned correctly, but as proposed right now, seems like it'll just worsen the problem, and that's part of it as well. We didn't expect everybody to be here this long. We're so happy that you did stay, and that you came in such big numbers, and that so many of you stayed till the end. There are flyers that you can pick up. Everybody here will be here for a little while longer if you want to just talk one-to-one with anybody. There's still coffee, I think, and water. So thank you again so much. Please tell other
Till
people.
10 o'clock.
Yeah, we have the room till 10.
We paid till 10.
Yeah, so.
Make sure you sign up and put your email on there.
Yes, please.
That is how we're gonna communicate
Yes.
questions from everyone.